Hey guys, today I want to talk to you about nutrition and some of the contrasting things that come with nutrition. And what I mean by that is, in today's society where we have access to the internet, we have the ability to find out information on anything. In fact, if I have any view, I can probably find something on the internet to back up that view, even if that's scientifically completely wrong. Which is one of the great things about the internet, that I can get the information. One of the bad things about the internet is you can probably find someone who will agree with you whether you're right or wrong. From the nutrition standpoint, one of those things that's often very confusing is protein and how much do we need each day. Firstly, let's talk about what protein is and what it helps us do. Protein helps promote healthy hormones. It helps us with a strong immune system, helps our metabolism work, and increase our performance. Protein in its simplest form is amino acids, and what they are more commonly called is the building blocks of the body. They regulate blood flow, produce many hormones and enzymes that help the body function optimally. They repair damaged cells, and they help produce glucogen, which actually helps turn those fatty cells we don't want into energy. So that's what protein is. Now we understand what it is. It's very clear that it's something that's very, very good for us. So the question is, how much protein should we have? Now, quite regularly we see extremes of recommendations, everything from 0.36 grams per pound of body weight every day, up to as high as 2 or 3 grams per pound of body weight every day. Now let me clear up where some of those recommendations come from and hopefully give you a rounder picture or a more accurate recommendation for you. So let's start with the lower end, the lower extreme, that 0.36 grams per pound of body weight. That is the amount I would need if I want to prevent protein deficiency issues. And so therefore, yes, scientifically we do need 0.36 grams per pound of body weight, but that's to prevent protein deficiency issues. That's not what we want to thrive. So whilst that's correct to an extent, it's not enough for us to thrive. Let's look at that other extreme now. When we talk about that 2 to 3 grams per pound of body weight, you often see that getting recommended in the bodybuilding world. Now the idea behind that is, when a bodybuilder, which is a sport which is very focused on fantastic nutrition, being incredibly disciplined in nutrition, when they come close to their competitions and they're 6, 12 weeks out, they start to refine their diet. Now their key focus is to look as good as possible on stage and retain as much lean muscle mass as possible when they're on stage. So one of the tactics they'll quite often use in that is to go for that higher end of protein, that 2 or 3 grams per pound of body weight. As they're dripping out those calories, stripping back that calories and leaning out, they're doing this to help promote that. Now again, this extreme is too much to help us thrive. But don't worry, you don't get any wasted protein during that. You know, the protein just doesn't get flushed out the body. That's a fallacy. What actually happens is it goes through a process called glucogenesis, which is basically your body turning protein into energy. And the glucogenesis is actually, it's a very expensive process when you think about it, because the glucogenesis actually takes energy, burns more energy to turn your protein into energy. It's also very expensive because protein, as its nature, tends to cost more than carbs. So therefore, whilst the protein doesn't get wasted, you can be even more efficient with your money. One thing that is worth noting about the higher protein diet is when they have done studies on this, some of the anecdotal evidence, anecdotal being the operative word, not massively backed evidence, that you do find that those on higher protein diets do tend to stay a little bit leaner. Now that actually makes perfect sense when you think about it, because when you eat protein, you get filled up very quickly and you're very satisfied. So you're less likely to want that extra food and less likely to crave that sugar because frankly, you're stuffed. Now that we've looked at the extremes of the protein, the lower end and the higher end, now let's try to find out what is the optimal level or the best for the normal person. That recommendation is about 0.8 grams to 1.2 grams per pound of body weight. Now, I've experimented with both personally, and where I've actually found that works the best for me is about 1 gram per pound of body weight. So the idea of being a person who's about 180 grams or 180 pounds, that is, I need 180 grams of protein per day. So that's a good way to look at it. Now, one thing I will note on this as well, when I've done the 1.2 grams, so for me at the time that worked out about 215 grams per day, when I've done that 1.2 grams, I have found it easier to stay lean. It's just I just found that challenge of the extra protein a bit hard to get. Now that we've decided, or now we've focused in on getting about 1 gram per pound of body weight, let's talk about how we can get that. So, in an ideal world, what we want to do as much as possible, get all of our protein from whole foods. We'll try to spread those out throughout the day evenly amongst your meals and your snacks. So say on average, most of us have 3 meals per day and 2 snacks. In an ideal world, we will cut your protein by 5 and split it out evenly between them. Now, as I said earlier on, there have been fallacies around you can only absorb a certain amount of protein per meal. That's not true. Now, I wouldn't try to get your whole whack in one meal, but you can have more than, say, 25, 30, 35 grams of protein a meal and still absorb it. So don't worry about that. But ideally, you want to spread them as evenly as possible. Now, what I find in reality, it tends to work out as the meals are a little bit higher and the snacks are a little bit lower in protein. I just try to find out is how most people work out in their lives, how it tends to even out. So let's talk about how we do that. Now, from a personal perspective, I tend to load my meals up a little bit higher and bring my snacks down a little bit more. So if I look at my lunch, there's about 45 grams of protein in that. In my post-workout, about 30 grams of protein in that in shake form. I'm actually experimenting collagen at the moment. I'm finding that quite good, just so you know. Dinner, about 60 grams. And then my last snack in the evening, which is my Greek yogurt and some blueberries, is about another 45 grams of protein. You do the maths there, you got 180 grams. Now, what I tend to do as well then, I'll keep an eye on that. My lunches, I'll usually get a freshy salad with some extra chicken. Dinner could be anything from 2 breasts of chicken. Yes, I'll have to have 2 breasts because I need that extra bit of chicken. 2 breasts of chicken with my quite often potatoes and some veg. I love salad in my dinners for that. And then my post-workout, as mentioned, has that collagen in it. Now, what I'll also do is I'll track that throughout the day. I like to use my MyFitnessPal. And if I find at the end of the day I'm a little bit shy in the protein, that's where I'll get in an extra shake, or sometimes I have an RX bar, which has about 12 grams of protein in it. So that's kind of how I like to break it out. Now, I personally try to get as much of my protein from whole foods, or if I needed to go from the shake route, and rather than thinking, oh, well, beans has this much protein and nuts have this much protein. By the way, not that there's anything wrong with beans or nuts, but just because beans have more carbs, nuts have more fat, for example, therefore, I view those more as a carb source and a nut source, which also has protein. I don't tend to rely on them because if you do, you just ramp up your total calories, which then defeats the purpose of, trying to have that balance, because you end up getting too much on here, the carb and the protein side as well. So that's something just to keep in mind. To wrap up then, guys, we've looked at what protein is, why we need it, and why it's so essential, and why it helps us thrive. We've also looked at the extremes, be the low recommendations and the high recommendations, and we've come to a conclusion that about 1 gram per pound of body weight is a great place to be. We've also talked about the fact that we want to get the majority of our protein from whole foods and spread that evenly throughout the day. The exception to that being that post-workout is a time when you can see benefits from getting it in shake form or getting it in liquid form, because it helps it absorb into the body faster, particularly at a time where a lot of us can be a little bit more sensitive and not want whole foods after that workout. The last thing to leave you with then, guys, is to talk about consistency. Doing things like this, getting enough protein, it isn't a case of getting it Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday in the week, and then Thursday, Friday, Saturday dropping off. You need it 7 days a week, week in, week out, and getting that consistency and being consistent with it. So therefore, if the amount of protein you require is a bit daunting for you, that's where you need to plan. The reason I was able to rattle off what I eat every day protein-wise and get that is 2 reasons. 1, I log it and I track it. But number 2, I plan ahead. I always have Greek yogurt at home. There's always an RX bar there if I need that extra snack. There's always some extra protein there if I need it. But I'm working throughout the day to get it. Now, after a while, it becomes quite natural. But when you're trying to do it at first, you do have to put a little bit of work into it. With results, work has to come before results, unfortunately. So put a little bit of work into it, put a little bit of time to plan out what you need. Look for that 1 gram per pound of body weight. Try to split it up as evenly as possible throughout the day. Make that plan, then stick to that plan and follow through. If you miss a day, don't worry about it. You can try to bump it up the next day and average out over a 7-day. Ideally get enough in that day, but if you need to, you can average things out. But the key thing is plan ahead and be consistent about it. Guys, I hope this helps. I hope this clears up some of the confusion around protein, and I hope this helps you to get consistent and to start getting results. If you have any other questions, just ask. Otherwise, see you in the gym.